What's up, Meisterville? Welcome back to another episode of the Creative Podcast. We are here with Mr. Ray Witcher. So don't mind the noises in the background. You know, we all have neighbors who do stuff. So, but you
Yep.
know, we'll bear with it today. How you doing, man? How you doing this morning?
It's been a very hard and long year. I'm sure everyone's felt the same way. But it's actually also been very interesting, especially for things like developing the art career and everything. Because obviously, with being home so much, we've all had a lot more time to actually do things that we've been meaning to, but haven't had time to. So some really cool stuff's been happening in the background as well. So I can't really complain. So it's been kind of good and bad.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to look at it. Yeah, I'm so glad to have a South African person on right now. I've been doing a lot of American people, and the time zones is just insane. I actually got to
Yeah,
sleep today.
yeah.
But anyway, talking about art, and just to prove to everybody I'm not fake, I know I showed him before, but I got to show Meisterville
Mhm.
again. Uh-huh. You should
Yes.
definitely get this. Definitely get this. This is really good. I really enjoyed it. So, I don't know if there's a digital copy of it, but yeah, just go look into this, guys. It was really good.
Yeah, I'm actually, for speaking of, I've sent it through to some publishers in France, so I'm waiting to see if anything happens with that. So, hold
Mm,
terms. So we never
fingers
know,
crossed.
because I was actually part of the Congolese festival called the Bilili Bon Dessiné Festival, which is
Oh,
pretty amazing. So so I'm hoping some good stuff comes out of that.
mm. Oh, I'm also realizing halfway into my intro that my mic is not on. So this is going to be interesting.
Yeah,
I mean, it's probably recording using the other stuff, but yeah, I just want to switch to the professional mic. Uh,
yeah.
but anyway, as I'm struggling with my equipment, let's talk about how you got started. Well, how did you get into art? What's the art about, and all of that stuff?
Yeah, so pretty much I've been doing like art. I always struggle with the word art because I've had some experiences where I was told that what I do is not art. So, but that's a discussion for another day, I think. But I've been drawing and doing that sort of thing since I was a tiny kid. So for obviously I don't look it, but I grew up in the late '80s, early '90s. So I grew up with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and GI Joe and the original Transformers and everything. So basically, I lived my life watching TV and then trying to draw the stuff I saw on TV. And that's basically how I started drawing, was essentially just trying to draw the turtles, trying to draw Ghostbusters, all that stuff that we had in the '90s. And then obviously the glorious Batman the animated series appeared and changed my life forever. I think it did for most people. And it was just to see comics on TV and everything. It was just the most amazing thing, because I'd just started buying comics. And my first one, I always tell everyone, it's quite funny. My first comic ever was Tales from the Crypt, which was not appropriate for a child my age, so which
How
was
did
quite
that
hilarious.
happen?
But then it just happened to be the one comic I could reach on the shelf. And so I'd saved up my pocket money, and I spent all of my huge amount of 50 cents on there, and bought my first ever comic, which was amazing. And then after that, I started being able to buy stuff like Batman. So Batman was the first actual comic, well, DC comic I started buying, and I've been reading Batman since then. So I mean, this was about 1992, and I've basically been reading Batman ever since, and collecting and everything. He's still my favorite character to this day. I've got quite a huge kind of diversity of interests in various comics, but Batman started the love, and because
Mm.
of the animated series, it also started my other true passion in love and in life, which is animation. And always as a kid I wanted to be part of it, I wanted to do it. And ironically, I've ended up making a name for myself doing comics, and only now have started making money from doing animation. So it kind of went cyclical. So the comics that started it all actually got me back into the industry, and then only now have I started animating again.
Oh, okay, cool. Is there any projects that you're doing right now that you can talk about, or is it all hush hush? Is there something
Yeah, well, the
coming?
the most recent one that I just finished was a music video for Corey Taylor. So
Okay.
he's the former lead singer of Slipknot, and
Hmm.
he actually commissioned us to do a music video for Highway 666, which was his newest song. And it was such a cool project. He was an amazing client. It was a tight deadline, but it was a really cool project to work on. So that's on YouTube at the moment. And then the one I worked on before that was Marshmallow, Youngblood, and Black Bear's song Tongue Tied. So we made the animated music video for that one as well. So
Loving these
which was a
titles.
huge, yeah. Yeah, it was very, very cool. So I've been chatting to some other musicians like Orville Peck and quite a few others to actually start seeing where we can get more animation in, because I work with a studio named Tune 53,
Mm,
and so it just depends on style as well, because obviously I've got quite a graphic style and more suited to kind of comic sort of things. So they will often reach out to different kinds of illustrators and animators to work on different projects. So if they want super toony stuff, they'll work with another team, and if they need my style, then we'll work with that. We even pitched to rappers like Tiny Temper, and what was the other guy's name? I can't remember, but like Tiny Timber was a big name, and it was just we were a little bit too late to get him, but because the other guys that pitched got in like about 5 minutes before we did, and they went with them
oh.
instead. So it happens
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah, it happens. It happens. I mean, I can tell
Yeah.
you running this podcast, it's been a blessing and a curse because I love doing it,
Mm,
but also getting guests and everything. Like sometimes I'll be messaging up to like 400 people, and
yeah.
you missed one, and then you get like six back, and then some like one guy canceled on me yesterday. So yeah, like these things in entertainment and in art and all
Yeah.
of that stuff, it happens a lot. So
It
you
does.
kind of
Yeah.
just have to roll with the punches, as they say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta ask you though, is it me or did the '90s have the best theme songs for cartoons? '90s
Oh
and
yeah. Of
'80s,
course.
'90s and '80s,
I,
like
I mean, you could pretty much sing every theme song because they're so memorable and were so well written. And I mean, everything from X-Men to Gargoyles, and then like GI Joe's had an amazing one as well. So it's just, and Power Rangers, obviously. So,
yeah.
like,
Well, I mean,
yeah,
it's Super Sentai. I don't know if it counts as a tune, but yeah, that theme
yeah,
song was
yeah.
just amazing. That theme song was just
Ironically, though, did you know that Spider-Man invented that genre of Super
Super
Sentai? Because
Sentai.
yes, because there
Oh,
was the
because
Japanese version called, yeah,
yeah, yeah,
Spider-Man
yeah.
Tokusatsu. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, the Japanese Spider-Man, and then he
Yes.
got a big giant robot, and
Hmm.
then they just continued with that because Spider-Man
Yeah.
was so popular.
It's pretty weird.
I watched an episode. I didn't understand what was happening.
It's the same as the Bat manga. Like it's so funny when you see Batman in a Japanese manga, because the artist just really didn't understand who Batman was as a character. So it
Yeah.
got
I
very
mean,
interesting.
yeah, I guess so. Because also, the another thing that makes me laugh is Batman Ninja. When that came
Hmm.
out, that was the weirdest and
Hmm.
strangest thing I've ever seen of Batman, and like
Yeah.
I still don't understand what was happening. I watch a lot of anime.
Yeah.
I'm a huge
Yeah.
anime guy, so like for an anime thing to confuse me,
To
it's
not make
that's a
sense.
feat. That's a feat and a half.
Yeah.
There's a lot of anime where you're just like, okay, that's weird, but I get it. But there, I was
Yeah.
just confused the entire time. Maybe because it was
Yes.
Batman.
Exactly.
But speaking of themes, my favorite one is still the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I have that on my phone. Like whenever I'm having
Oh
a bad
yes.
day, that's the one I put on because that the
Yeah.
80s theme. I started watching the cartoon actually because a channel called Black Nerd Comedy, who covers a lot of that
Hmm.
nostalgia stuff, was the because I thought that the 2003 Turtles was the only Turtles because that was the Turtles I grew up with.
Oh.
I didn't know about the 80s and the 90s. I had
Yeah.
no clue whatsoever. So I was just like, no, these are
Just
my turtles. What are you talking about?
yeah. Just don't watch the live action one. Whoa, that one was not good.
I watched both of them actually, against my better judgment, and like
Yeah.
I like a lot of people was talking about like it's stupid and whatever, and I get it because they were referencing the '80s. But I think the thing
Mm,
that bothered me the most was that they were bodybuilders on steroids. I'm like, how are you gonna be a
yes.
ninja when
Yeah.
like how do you hide? Like that's like there's no way nobody can notice you. Raph was a tank. Like when
Yes.
they're hiding in the police station, I'm like, the dude just had to look up. Like there's no
Yeah.
way he would have seen them. That was the biggest thing that bothered me. Everything else kind of let go and miss. Like the Shredder stuff, that was also very strange and weird, and I hated
Hmm.
what they did with him in the second one because he was literally just there to say lines and then get frozen by Krang. And I'm just like,
Yes.
you can't put Shredder over Krang. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Krang fans, I
Yes.
get it, but Shredder is it's like it's in the name, Teenage Mutant Ninja
Yes.
Turtles. He's the guy. Like man.
Yes.
Yeah. So I agree with you. I didn't like those movies at all. The tune I
Mm.
liked though, I don't know if you watched it, the 2012 Nickelodeon tune.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
I've watched every single version of it, including Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which, funnily enough, is the biggest inspiration behind my art style. because I adore that show. I'm like the only one that does like it, but,
I haven't watched
I
it yet.
really love it.
I haven't watched it
Oh,
yet. I have to check it out.
it's interesting because they went in a very different route. So it's comedy instead of the normal kind of adventure style, and it's also short. So the episode's only about 10 minutes long each. So it's more like tons of action, some of the best fight scene and directing I've ever seen in my life, and then it ends.
Mm,
So it's a bit confusing because
okay.
they're clearly building up to it, and there's going to be a Netflix film that they're pretty busy producing now to end it off. But it was a really cool take on the characters. The turtles are much more distinct now. They've got actual different species as well. So Raph is a snapping turtle, and different things like that. So it's actually interesting. And Raph is the leader now. So it's he's in charge instead of Leo, which is always kind of what the comics wanted anyway. So it's interesting that they actually went in that direction.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that because Raph
Yeah,
being the leader, the Raph I know is always throwing first and never thinking
yeah.
afterwards. So I don't know how his leadership style would pan out.
That's pretty much what you'd expect, and I think that's what the series does in a really clever way.
Yeah.
But I can't give away too many spoilers because the final episodes are really interesting in what they do there.
Oh, okay. So then is Leonardo the resident strategist or whatever then?
No, he's the resident clown. So, so yeah, he's instead of Mikey being the clown, now Leo's the clown. So
Good God,
he's
what
like a
is
slacker.
happening? This is turtle
Yeah,
topsy turviness.
yeah, yeah, pretty much.
All right, I'll give it a chance. I'll give it a chance. You know, like the traditionalist in me. I can't
Mm,
believe I'm speaking as a traditionalist on comic books and cartoons. That's
yeah,
insane, isn't it?
yeah,
That's the world we live in. Like, yeah, the
yeah.
traditionalist in me is like, I have to see this. I have to see how it works out. I have to see how it works
Mm,
out. Speaking of which, though, as a person who's in nerddom, like, do you feel like nerds sometimes get really ridiculous with our properties? Like sometimes we just go
yes.
far left field where we take it to a place
Hmm.
where it's like nobody was even thinking of that. Like the one thing
Yeah.
that comes to mind is definitely Star Wars. Like they started messaging the individual actors. I was like, really?
Yes. That was just unnecessary. No, but it's even something like you look at Teen Titans and then Teen Titans Go. Right? That's where like it's actually two very different series, and both are actually really good. It's just for different people, and that was where the fans got so angry, and I love that Teen Titans Go actually makes fun of that, and they had whole episodes dedicated to toxic fandom, and saying like people like things, let them like things, stop being haters. It's like it was actually really great, and it's the same with Star Wars. And it's just like with the whole Rey saga and everything like that, I was just like how people did that, and they started attacking each of the actors, especially poor John Boyega, and it was
No,
just not necessary.
the person who played Rose, she I felt bad for
Yes,
her because she had to delete her Instagram, and I was
yes,
not a fan of the movie. And even Teen
yeah,
Titans Go, it's got some value for me, but I'm OG Teen Titans. I really love that,
mm,
but I can always separate like. It's very easy for me to be like, okay, this is not for me, so I'm not gonna check it
yeah,
out. This is for me, I'm gonna
yeah,
check this out. I'm actually very good at
exactly.
that. So I don't
Mm,
understand how people will confuse and meld realities. It's like I don't know if you ever watched like Seven Delan, like there was very old episodes of
yeah,
Seven Delan
yeah,
where I forget her name. I forget her name. She was like the resident villain or whatever. And she said that she literally got confronted in like grocery stores by other tannies
yes,
and other old women because they
yeah,
were just like, you can't be doing this to my man on TV. And I was just like, y'all realize there's
it's
no
a character.
camera.
Yeah. Shame. People are just ridiculous.
I was like, imagine going to jail for assaulting an actress for playing something on TV. That
Yeah,
is
a character you don't like, yeah.
ah ah. I mean, I know she was good. Like I knew she was good, but sheesh, I didn't know that you can make people believe that much in a fictional world. Wow.
Yeah, apparently.
I mean,
Oh,
again,
sigh.
it's not to discount any of these things because I mean, fiction has a huge impact. We have Comic-Con and all of that stuff
Mm,
for a reason. But I mean, you don't be insane. Like
yeah,
that's mental. Like you need to be in Arkham Asylum if you're actually doing stuff like that.
yeah. I mean, there's a difference between being a fan and a fanatic, and
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's the problem.
There's like four other letters on top of that.
Yes. Ah,
Speaking of condo, I'm so sad that we had two,
mm,
and then coronavirus was like, yeah, I'm not getting any more
ruined
cons in the
everything.
future.
Yeah.
I mean,
Ah,
we literally got out two big cons, and then it's like done.
yeah. And it's
And
now you will just sit at home.
yeah, I was so upset because I was just like we were just getting into con culture, and like it's never gonna be the same again. But I wanted us to at least get to like San Diego level before
Mm,
everything changed. I was hoping for that because I still wanted to go to San Diego. I don't know now. I still want to go to San Diego, but it's not going to be
yeah.
the San Diego that I wanted to go to. But
Mm.
we take it as we take it in strides. But how did you feel about the last two cons that we had?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, the two Comic Cons were just absolutely amazing. The first one at Kyalami, I couldn't believe how many people were there. That was actually just incredible to think that that many people wanted to see a Comic Con. It's we were expecting kind of like a quarter of that amount of people. So I think that and I mean, all honestly, all compliments to the team that organized it because I mean, no one expected that many people, and I know people whined about the heat and the food and all of that sort of thing, but it always happens at conventions. This was just the amount of just exposure and how many people finally got to see South African comic makers and artists and realize that there's so many people that do this stuff in the country. I mean, the amount of people that said to me like, "There's people that make comics here." Like, can I buy one? The amount of people that asked if they could buy one, not like, hey, I'd like to take one. Like, am I allowed to buy a comic from you? I'm like, of course you are. That's the whole point of me being here. So the Gallagher Estate one was just, it was phenomenal. It was such an amazing experience to see like that kind of where we had repeat customers and people coming specifically to the Artist Alley to buy those sort of things. But I mean, like to actually rewind a bit, FanCon actually really kind of revolutionized the Comic Con aesthetic and especially the Artist Alley. So they're a Cape Town based convention, and they were the OGs where they started this comic centered specific comic thing, and their core focus actually was on local comic production, which has always been the most amazing thing. And I'll treasure the first time I went there. I went only as a guest the first time just to go to present a few panels and things like that. And then the second time I went, I was actually an exhibitor as well. And it was just such a cool experience because the Cape Townians like comics, they like art and everything. So it's quite cool to actually get an audience that's really there specifically for that stuff. Because Joburgers are weird. They kind of go to Comic Con, they go, "Oh, I'm going to buy all the stuff in the first hall," and then they come into the next hall and they're like, "Okay, I've spent all my money now. I can't buy anything." So it's just like I find the Joburg audience is very impulsive in that way.
Yeah,
So
no,
and it's hard.
yeah, no, it is hard. Like, definitely, I'm a person who loves indie comic book creators, especially here, because I don't know how you feel about this, but I feel like it's getting to a point in America where it's getting very, very saturated, where I think the next
Mm,
nexus of superhero stuff is going to be outside of there. And I'm
yeah.
eyeing here, South Africa or Africa in general, as the next
Mm,
nexus of where all the superhero content is going to come from, because I've always said this is that you can tell the same story, but it's never going to be the same through like six different lenses. So like a
yeah.
person in Soweto, a person in Sunninghill, and a person in Limpopo are going to have totally
Mm,
different views of the same situation. So that's why when a lot of people are like, my story might be generic, I'm like, no, I don't think so. I don't think so.
mm,
There's a lingo. What the hell is that? There's a lingo, and there's
yeah.
a culture, and there's a behavior that is specific to certain pockets of South Africa, because like we're actually such a diverse nation amongst ourselves that like
Mm,
everywhere the culture is different. So I definitely tell people, don't like put out your story as generic as it can be. It's fine. Like South African
yeah.
Transformers will look very different to American Transformers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like I'll never forget the words of Moe Roda because he's one of the also the original kind of comic makers from the early 2000s that really started the regrowth of comics in the industry. And he said the thing is that to make a comic, just start. Like don't try and agonize over the story and everything. He's like, it doesn't matter what you do, your first comic's gonna suck. It always is. I mean, it's like the first time you do anything, you're going to be terrible at it. So and that's the whole point is you're supposed to just make and make and make and make because you can't get better if you don't do more. And he was saying like it's start with black and white. Don't go all fancy high definition color and everything. Like just get a story together, put out 16 to 20 pages and actually see what it's like to make a real comic. because once you start, then you realize what are the kind of mistakes you made in the first one. You see that maybe your panelling is not so good, or your text is not working, or your characters are too wordy, or they're not wordy enough. And that's the sort of stuff you need to start doing. It's not just about like, I'm going to make the perfect comic the first time I try, because that's not going to happen. No comic is ever going to be perfect. And speaking of especially the superhero genre, you just need to look at something like Quasi, and the fact that they're currently producing an animated series for Netflix right now, which is the most amazing thing. So we're actually going to see Quasi on TV, which is the best thing ever. And then we look north in the rest of Africa, and characters like Jemba, which are just absolutely kicking butt all over the world, not just in Africa, but he's just become this incredible powerhouse of a character. And I mean, Eton Comics and Comic Republic and Kugali Media, all of those guys in the East and West Africa are doing the most amazing stuff. And in fact, Ghana, Ethiopia, Nigeria, and Kenya are the kind of leaders in Africa. Not us. We have a long way to go. Like, we need to look further at our neighbors and the guys right up at the top of Africa, because they're doing such incredible work. And they've adopted and worked on the digital model completely perfectly. So they've got a Netflix style comic website where you pay a monthly subscription and you can read as many titles as you want, and it works so well. And I think that's the one catch that essay artists have, is that we all want to make the money, but we're not willing to put in the work. And so if we actually started working together and actually did something similar to something like Kugali or Etan Comics, and actually getting our stuff onto a platform where people can pay $50 a month and actually read our comics, then we will get the readers, we will get the audiences, and we can still sell the physical books like we always do, because people like physical comics. But there's nothing quite like being able to read the comic online and then coming to a convention as a fan to buy the actual stuff, instead of just randomly discovering it at a convention. Because
Mm.
honestly, it's difficult to get comics into bookstores because there's no guaranteed revenue, and it's hard to maintain stock. So that's the kind of stuff, because we don't really have the financial backing to print thousands of comics. Instead, we print 100 and hope we sell them. And so that's the kind of stuff that we have to consider. So going the digital model first is the most effective and the most logical platform for all artists. It doesn't matter whether you're established or you're brand new. It's the way to get people to actually read your content, because then at least it's there. Everyone's got a cell phone nowadays, and they can actually pick up their phone and read a comic right now. And that's the important thing. So we need to bear in mind that this thing is where most people access the internet. And so we need to think about that, and where people access most of their content. And so aiming at that, and aiming at a mobile friendly, sort of well thought out platform would be really great to get our work out there a little bit more efficiently.
So that, in your opinion, that would be the only way to kind of raise the bar in terms of the local industry of comic books in South Africa.
Yeah, it's at least to grow a consumer base, because
Mm.
getting an audience is hard, especially when you're only selling your books once or twice a year at a convention. So it's not a sustainable model. You're not going to get people to do that. And there's people like Gashwal with Ntati Molefe, for example, that's doing the most amazing stuff. And I think one thing that works in his favor is he's already a famous personality, so he's able to actually use his fame to his advantage as well, and that's a good thing, because he's such a good guy and he's doing such amazing work with Joe and all of those that whole team, and it's such a good book. And I think that's the important thing, is that he's made it affordable. It's easy to get access to it. He's putting it everywhere. Bala Books is doing great work in general. So I think Gush has found a really good model as well. So it's not to say we should be exclusively digital, but we need to look at people like Gushwell and see how he's doing it, because he's really figured out a sustainable model as well.
I mean, for me personally, this channel that I've made, it's kind of dedicated to indie comic books in general.
Mm,
Like I cover geek culture, like I'll cover like movie news, or I'll cover like comic book changes. Like recently DC just released Tim Fox as the
yes.
new Batman, and I made a video covering that. So, but I don't
Yeah.
necessarily cover like the DC comic books, because I feel like it's been done to death, honestly.
Mm.
Like I feel like there's 3,000 channels that are going to be talking about the
Oh yeah.
paneling and the story and all of that stuff. So most of my stuff has been dedicated to indie comic books. Like I'm actually planning a series where I'm going to be doing a history of, for a lot of the
Mm.
indie comic book characters, like those channels like Variant Comics or whatever, but just talking about
Yes.
indie comic book characters. So like for me, I think my goal is to kind of be like a mouthpiece for the local
Mm.
industry here. So a lot of my reviews, a lot of my stuff is dedicated to pushing original content that's from here to the world, because a
Yeah.
lot of my audience is overseas. I don't have an audience here. Like, it's China, it's the US, it's England,
Mm,
France, and Iraq, surprisingly.
wow.
I don't know. That's what my YouTube analytics say. I'll take
No, that's good.
it.
Mm,
All right. Yeah, that's good. And I think that's definitely something that we should I think that's definitely something that should be looked at as well, because I'm
mm,
also like, I also program and I do websites, so I am looking at taking some time out next year to try and build a platform like that and see if I
yeah.
can get it up and running. Funding is going
Mm.
to be a nightmare, but yeah, who knows?
You know,
um
we need to get some of that sweet government money, I think.
yeah, hopefully tender pradesh anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I saw some of your commissions and I saw some of the stuff that you were doing by yourself.
Mm.
You took on a lot of obscure characters. Like, I saw you draw a Hellboy, for example.
Yep.
So are you also into like those very obscure, those like Dark Horse and all of that stuff?
Oh yeah.
Talk about that for
Yeah,
a
I
second.
mean, I still need to actually draw Chew, for example. He's one of my favorite comic book characters of all time. So it's just I absolutely adore Image, Dark Horse, or all of the like all of I wouldn't, they're not small. I mean, they're part of the big four, but they do really amazing stuff. And what I appreciate, especially about Dark Horse, Dreamwave, and Image, is that they don't have that strict comic book style. Because I mean, Marvel DC has that kind of aesthetic where there's a very expected look to their titles. You don't deviate from it. There's no kind of change in it. So the Jim Lee sort of, I mean, Sean Gordon Murphy's kind of pushing it a little bit, but like in general, you're going to expect it to see like a Jim Lee style. Like that's what people want, and that's how people do it. But what I love about Image is that they don't care about that. It's all about expression. I mean, one of my greatest, most famous, favorite comics of all time is I Kill Giants. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. It's completely black and white. It's a very, very almost interestingly naive style, but done so effectively that you feel the emotion, you feel the pain. It's the only comic that's actually ever made me cry because that story was so sad and so beautiful. And you don't really see that stuff in the mainstream publishers, and so it's because these guys get a platform. And something like Chew, which became so successful that it's now again been commissioned to have a series based on it. And originally they only ever wanted 20 issues. That was it. That's what Dreamwave Image said to them. It's like, you're going to have exactly 20 issues, and that's all we're giving you. And now it's, I mean, I think they're on issue 200 because the series has been so popular and so loved that they just keep going. And that's the great stuff. And I mean, like, to actually see how original concepts like that with really different ideas and approaches work. Even look at shows like Doom Patrol and Umbrella Academy. Those, I mean, Doom Patrol is it's from a label called Young Animal, which does belong to DC. But what they've done is given a kind of alternative platform to comic media where you never expect to see characters like you do in Doom Patrol. And Umbrella Academy obviously is so massively popular at the moment, and it's Gerard Way's pet project, and he does great work. I mean, The Life and Times of the Fabulous Killjoys is another seriously good title, and it's all based on his albums, which is amazing. So it's like, I think that's one of the cool things, and you don't see that in DC and Marvel. I mean, Gerard's doing great stuff with Young Animal, but it's not something that you would normally expect to see from them. And I think even because Young Animals, they're DC's indie label, that's why you're seeing all the cool stuff. And so that's why I've always enjoyed the smaller titles like Hellboy and Spawn and Judge Dredd and all of those, or the great classics. I mean, I love British comics. It's some of my favorites. And it's just actually working with those genres and those aesthetics and everything. And yeah, I mean, like I said, I grew up in the 90s, so a lot of these characters were mainstream for me. And so that's why, like, I've always enjoyed them, because like you actually got weird series like Wildcats and Battle Chasers and all of those sort of things. So you actually got used to seeing those characters in animated series, and then they just disappeared. And
Mhm.
now they're kind of relegated to side characters and that kind of stuff. Like one of my favorite characters is Booster Gold. Like, I've always loved him. I've always thought
Oh.
he was a true great character. And Justice League Unlimited really showed how much of a cool character he actually is. And even Batman the Brave and the Bold, I love that they've gone like the tongue-in-cheek bad 60s Batman route, but it's really fun because it just shows that characters don't have to be serious all the time.
Yeah,
So yeah,
They have Batman playing baseball in the daytime,
yes,
and that's how
yes,
he's known as Batman.
yes,
That was
love
that's
it,
pretty fun.
love it.
That's pretty fun. No, I mean I watched a bit of the Adam West and all of that stuff. So like
Mm,
Campy Batman is pretty cool. Like I don't like that whole, like, the one thing that kind of bothered me about the Snyderverse is that everybody was kind of gloomy. Everybody.
yes, everything.
Everybody was gloomy. I was like, Batman's got the gloom. It's cool. And then when they tried to reverse it, they went too much the opposite way. And I was just
Yeah,
like, if you're looking for a balance, go read the books. Like
yes,
they find it in there.
yes.
Also,
In fact,
Ezra
actually,
Miller can't run. Like his
no.
form is so weird.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, if you actually want to look at the best version of Justice League Unlimited, and the best version of Batman, Batman Beyond. So like it's all these different things that really changed the nature of the character and actually showed these things. And Justice League handled, I think, probably over 100 characters in that animated series, and each one got their time on screen. Each one was handled with respect, and there were really great story arcs in it, especially with characters like Black Canary and Green Arrow and those guys, which are always relegated to the sides, and then you actually got to see really cool stuff with them. And yeah, I mean, they are all the TV series nowadays, so like a lot more characters are getting a lot more exposure. But I mean, Justice League back then was the only way to see these things. So and they handled it so well. So I think that's the thing. People always underestimate animation, but it's just, I mean, you look at Star Wars Rebels and how much of an impact it had on Mandalorian, and that's just par for the course. And it's like Mandalorian literally is a live action version of Rebels, basically, which is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, I just also started watching that because I had gotten put on off. I got put off with Star Wars for a minute, especially with what they did to Luke. With what they did to
Yeah.
Luke in the Last Jedi, I was just like, ah, man, if he's gonna die, at least make him die like Obi did. Cause like,
Yes.
yeah, I mean, cause Obi goes out in a pretty epic, spectacular fashion, and I was just like, yeah,
Yes.
if Luke is gotta die, let's do it that way. Let him go down to Kylo Ren, not because he's doing a floating, you know.
Yes.
But I mean, that being said, yeah. So when a lot of people and then also the last movie, I felt like what they did with Finn, I didn't like as well because they tease him
Yes.
being a Jedi for so long, and then they don't even
Mm.
let him win fights by himself, and then they kind of just
Yes.
push his character into
They
a corner.
they fridged him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they fridged
And
him.
that's
So
and that's the problem, is that I don't know if you probably haven't seen it yet, but the Lego Star Wars special that they just released, so it's based off of the original Christmas special, the terrible Christmas special. So they make fun of that, but that is the first series that's canon that's confirmed that Finn is an actual Jedi, and that Rey is actually training him to be a Jedi. So it's the only time he was ever holding a lightsaber properly and being taught the forms and using the Force. It's just like, so he is
what?
actually a Jedi. Yes,
I,
but it's like, and that's the thing.
in the Christmas special,
In
bro.
the Christmas special. Yes.
Finn is a Jedi in the Christmas special, not in the movie. Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. It's just like,
Wow. Because I mean, they could have done an Order of the Jedi again. Because one thing I think the movies
mm,
did that Rebels and all of the other cartoon, because everything around Star Wars is amazing. Like
oh
people
yeah,
don't get it twisted. The comic books are really good.
mm,
They really
the
expand the
novels.
universe,
Mm,
and like they focus on other characters. Like you get to see other Jedi stories and everything. Like there
yes,
was one story that I really loved where you find out that the Jedi Council themselves, they are Jedi, but they're also shady in their dealings. So
yes,
a Padawan, he eventually gets, like, he becomes a Jedi. He goes through the whole entire trial and everything, but he starts noticing that stuff is off, and then he ends up
mm,
running away with a couple of what's
younglings.
Lando again? Smugglers. There we go.
Oh
Why am
yeah,
I
yeah.
forgetting that word? Yeah, Lando and Han. Like he runs off
Mm,
with a couple of smugglers because they try to kill him because he starts investigating what's wrong with the Jedi Council in that particular
mm-hmm.
sector. and then he has to go on the run, and then these Jedi are following him, and then it becomes that thing of like, who do you trust, who do you fight with, and all of that stuff, because there are Jedi who get orders to track him down, but they don't even know the
Yeah.
situation of what's going on. So now him as a Jedi, he's got to make really tough decisions, and I think he ends up becoming a gray Jedi at the end of the series, which is a very
Mm.
interesting story. And it's nowhere near Luke, it's nowhere near the Skywalkers. He's not related to any,
Yes.
he can just use the Force. I like the idea of, if you train in the Force, you can just use the Force type of thing,
Yes.
versus this whole thing of, well, I mean, the midichlorian stuff, they're bringing it back, but I'm just saying, I liked that idea that the Force is open to anybody who wants to use it. It's like a thing in the
Yes.
universe. It's like one of the governing laws of the universe.
Mm.
It's not something that only particular people can use. Like, because then you're
Yep.
going into like anime with like the Uchiha and the Sharingan. Wait, I don't know if
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if you watch anime like that. Are you an anime person?
Not so much like like DBZ is the only thing that I still watch in terms of like the, let's say, popular anime, because I couldn't do Naruto. I don't I'm going to be cast aside as a heathen for this, but like I couldn't do it. But like stuff like, yeah, I know, but stuff like No Guns Life and Fully Cooley, Little Witch Academia, Kill the Kill, like basically anything Trigger does, like I will watch over and over again. Like BNA I've probably watched about 3 times. So it's like that kind of stuff I absolutely adore. But like No Guns Life is just so very good, and Demon Hunter as well. Oh my word, that was amazing. So I appreciate things like, and even things like Concrete Revolutio, and I love One Punch Man, but that's because it's satire. So it's like I absolutely adore it. So there's been some really, really good stuff, but a lot of the time I kind of I can't. It's like I can't do the Seven Deadly Sins. It annoys me so much, and like those sort of things. It's just honestly I can't take the sexism.
Uh,
It's nothing more than that. I just hate the way they treat their female characters, and it makes me really angry to see it. And especially again, you look at Mandalorian, where they actually the Mandalorians are a matriarchal society. Their female warriors are the most powerful. They are the leaders of the entire kind of race. So, and it's so respectful and so well done. I mean, even when Bo-Katan appeared, like you see how great she is as a character. And those are the kind of things that you look at, and then you get stuff like Fairy Tale and Seven Deadly Sins, and I'm just like, this is awful. I hate it.
Okay,
So
no, fairy tale. I'll give it to you. Fairy tale, yeah, that
yeah.
one is it's a bit rough in there. Seven Deadly Sins. I think the thing is that well, in Japanese culture, first off and foremost, that's it's. I'm not trying to criticize here, but like they have a lot of that. They have a lot of that, but they also have a lot of it's a very strange.
Mm.
Like, I think you'd have to live there to kind of
Yeah, it's like a
understand the.
swinging door.
Yeah, you have to live there to understand the gags of what's going on in Seven Deadly Sins. But I
Mm.
think what they do with the Elizabeth character as well is they don't just make her an object. Like, for a lot of the
Mm.
scenes where she is, where Meliodas is doing that. But then the weird thing is that he'll never do that to anybody else. It's specifically her, and it's because there's tied
Yeah.
to them being reincarnated again and again and again and again. So
Mm.
it's a yeah. So, but I mean, I totally get it. Like, if you're a person just stepping into the world of anime for the first time, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a lot. It's a lot,
Yeah.
and it's it takes a lot to get into. So, anime fans,
Yeah.
don't get upset. Relax.
Yeah.
Put the knives
Yeah.
down. Calm down. You can't GPS locate Ray right now. We in the pandemic.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I loved stuff like Cannon Busters,
Ooh, Cannon
and
Busters was good.
it was so good. And
Uh
like, and the legendary stuff like Cowboy Bebop and Trigun. Like, I mean, my first cosplay was actually Vash the Stampede.
ooh.
So like, yeah, so all the like the I love those series. So there's some truly magnificent ones, and I still put myself through Dragon Ball Super, even though I know it's going to be stupid. I love it. I love how dumb it is. I love how predictable it is. It just makes me happy.
I can't do it. I can't do it. They ruined Super Saiyan for me, Ray. They ruined Super
But
Saiyan.
I mean, which Super Saiyan? There's like a million now.
Oh, tingly backs, man. Tingly backs.
Yes.
Like, Krillin dies, Vegeta
Mm,
almost dies in space, Gohan goes through
yeah.
all sorts of trauma, and that's just what made their back so tingly that they could go Super Saiyan.
Yes. Yes. Ugh.
And then
It's so
Jiren doesn't
uh,
make sense to me. I'm sorry. Jiren
no,
doesn't make sense. Broly doesn't make sense. I know, okay, this is
yeah,
my turn. This is my turn. Like they came for you, now they're coming for me. But that Broly
yeah,
movie, it don't make no sense. I'm sorry.
yeah.
How
And
does he
also,
not
what
know
is with
about
the
Super Saiyan, but then he's just ragdolling Goku and Vegeta like they're
yeah,
playthings?
and also
I didn't
what was with
understand.
the and the weird CG animation that they put like halfway through because it was really well animated, and then they just had these bad CG sequences, and I'm like, what is
Yeah,
this?
that was also confusing. And that
Yeah.
highlighted another issue for me. How is it that Broly is so strong it takes a fusion to beat him?
Mm,
It means
yeah.
that he's the same strength as Beerus. That's what it means.
Yes.
Like he and
Essentially, yes.
yeah, and people be like, no, that's not possible. You could see that Gogeta
Yeah.
he was just managing to tank some hits. So it's like you can't explain this. I'm sorry. That means
No.
that I always say this, the Saiyans should have just taken Broly as a baby and just chucked him at Frieza. Like at that point,
Yes.
he's a Super Saiyan. Like they should have just
He
taken
would have killed him anyway.
and
Yeah.
chucked him at Frieza. Because like just
Yeah.
upon contact, Frieza should have been dead if Broly is
Yeah.
that strong.
And then you get Bardock and Turles and all these other like the non Super Saiyan Saiyans that can suddenly go Super Saiyan, and then you're just like, okay. And then you have Ultra Instinct, and then you have different levels of Ultra Instinct, and you're just like with Kaioken, and you just go, what? What is? And no one's noticed that Whis is more powerful than Beerus. So
Easily,
it's no
easily.
one has noticed that. It's just like, uh,
Like he's like he watches Beerus. Like as soon as we say
yes,
something, Beerus shuts up. So you're just like
yeah,
that
and
should
no one
be
can touch Whis.
no, no.
Yeah.
No, but no, but just watch it. Like I was having an argument back and forth, and I literally said, "So you're telling me that if Krillin ever beats Vegeta and Goku, you'd be fine with it because the series can do that now. Anybody can just be
Apparently,
as
yes.
anybody can just be as strong as anybody because there's and
Suddenly,
yeah, because
yes.
I was just like, I believe in the rules. Like I know the rules are
Mm,
flimsy, but they're there. Like train, you
yes.
get strong. That's literally the
Yes.
formula. Like at this
Yeah.
point, Vegeta and Goku should be doing Pilates. They should just be doing yoga. They're not
Yeah.
doing anything because power levels and training just don't matter at all at this point. As
Yeah.
soon
They
as
just poof,
Frieza
poof,
came,
poof.
as soon as Frieza
Yeah.
came back from the dead and came gold, and now he had the same strength as Goku and Vegeta, I
Yeah.
was just like, all right, okay, y'all can have it.
Yes.
And they almost got me back when they brought back Gohan, but even then, they still did Gohan dirty. I was like,
Oh,
ah,
they. But they've basically been nerfing him since the original Dragon Ball Z. Like he had so much potential, and then that amazing fight against Cell, and then he just became a nerd. And you're like,
no, but like I'm saying, the problem wasn't even that. Like nerd is fine, books is
yeah,
fine, but you can't tell me that he can't train as well. We do that in real
no,
life. Like people
yeah,
study and go to the gym. Like
yes,
it's not like
yeah, you don't
the
have to
two.
give up everything.
And then the hyperbolic time chamber, the hyperbolic
Mm,
time chamber. You literally he can just go for a weekend. Like
yes,
just every weekend he goes to the hyperbolic time chamber and he's
yeah,
fine. Because like you
yeah,
guys forget he's the last resort if Goku and Vegeta are off planet. If they're somewhere else,
yes,
the next best bet is Gohan. But okay.
yes. But you know, whatever.
Yeah, man. No, I think like the series has a lot of merit, I guess, and especially for those people who have the nostalgia and stuff. But I think what started to bother me as a viewer is that YouTubers always had to explain what the writers were trying to do. And I feel like that's
Mm,
cheating. Like as a
yes.
writer, because I'm also becoming a writer right now, I'm writing scripts and all of that
Mm,
stuff. As a writer, I think your job is to kind of lead your audience through the series. Yes, they can make suggestions, but they should not be
yeah,
at the helm of the story. They should not be the
yeah,
ones putting the story together. It should be you as the writer leading them through the
yeah.
story. And then they'd be like, oh, this is cool. And then you kind of do that. And you're like, oh, I can't believe they did
Mm,
that. So like with Super, especially with like also like, yeah, with Super, I was just like, you guys are letting YouTubers and the audience dictate the story. And that's why all of these random things are happening out of nowhere.
hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So I like for me, I was just like, I can't do it. I can't do it. Like if
Yeah,
people like it, go ahead. Again,
yeah,
I because that's another thing about geek culture and internet culture in general. The minute you say you don't like something, it's like you want to take it away from somebody. And I was like,
yeah,
first off, I can't do that. Like short of
yes,
Mortal Kombat snatching your eyes, I really
yes,
can't block you from watching what you like. So I don't know why
yeah,
you want to come at me like I'm taking it away from you. But I
yeah.
mean, you know.
I'll never forget the one time I said to someone, I think Steven Universe is boring. whoa, the whole internet just was like, and I'm just like, whenever objectionally, objectively, have you actually sat through the first season again
I
after
couldn't.
having watched the whole thing? Sit through that first season and tell me you like Steven as a character. Tell me that you think that series actually is interesting to watch, besides how beautiful the backgrounds are, because it's grinding. It's so boring, and it's just, and I got so much flack for saying that, and I'm just like, there are better series that do what Steven's doing is better. It's more effective and more accessible. Young Justice, like, I mean, that was doing what Steven Universe was doing way before that came out, and it's a way better series. It's way better written, especially season 3. And I was just like, why are we forgetting that Young Justice exists? So I'm just like, yeah, and there were a lot of other better series. So I mean, I love the Star versus the Forces of Evil and Mau Mau, and there's a lot of other stuff that's actually just more entertaining, but in the same vein. And it was just like that, and I got so much flack for saying that, and I'm just like, I just don't like it. It doesn't mean
Yeah.
that I hate the theme. It doesn't mean that I'm anti-LGBT. I just think it's a bad series. That's all.
Yeah, but I
That's
mean, like
all I'm
that,
saying.
all of those things come out of nowhere, and you're just like, but that's
Yeah,
not what I said, though. I just said I don't like
yeah,
it. Like,
yeah, yeah.
like I
It
was
doesn't mean I
accused,
hate
I was
everyone
accused of being,
associated with
like,
it.
I was accused of being a misogynist because I didn't like Kifla or whatever. I was like,
Oh boy.
what? I
Yeah.
don't like the fact that she clocked Super Saiyan 2 in the same episode. I don't like that. Like, that's cheating.
Yes.
Like, you go through
Yes.
trials and tribulations. Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, as long as the characters go through things. I don't like it when like movies and series just make it easy because it's pandering. Like, I don't feel like
Yes.
that's fair. Like, and I also feel
Yeah.
like it's an insult now because it's like, as a woman, you must just get everything. And I was like, no, as a woman, she can go through the same struggles and climb the same
Mm.
ladders and get the same recognition that they deserve. That's kind of
Yeah. Because.
why I don't know how you feel about this, but like that's kind of why Captain Marvel kind of really bored me. Is because there was no real conflict in that movie for
Mm.
me. Like it was just
Yeah.
like the
And
minute she
there
takes
was
off the
some.
restraints, she just wrecks everything, and I'm just like,
Yeah, and I mean, yes, she is that powerful in the comics, but like they also did really weird stuff like this, making the Skrulls the good guys. And I was just like, why are the Skrulls the good guys? Like, when did this happen? Like,
I mean,
weird, stupid
The
stuff
Kree
like that.
also suck. Let's be fair. The
Yeah,
Kree
they're
suck.
both evil, but
Yeah,
like, why are the Skrulls good?
yeah, no,
And I'm just
that
like,
was also
oh,
weird. But I'm just like they just took the restraint. And in the comic books, because in the comic book, she's also kind of an up and down character for me personally.
yes,
Watch the Carol
yeah,
Danvers fans come at me. Sorry, but she is. But she's not
yeah,
that strong in the comic books. Like
mm,
in the movies, her and Thor can literally go toe to toe, and Thor tanked the star.
yeah,
Like, you know,
yeah,
and Thor had to build up he had to lose his family, he had to lose his kingdom.
yes. And Thor is a god as well.
Yeah, but like for her,
Yeah,
as soon as they just take off the restraints, she just wrecks everything. And I was just like,
mm,
man, because the thing is, I didn't hate that movie. There's a lot of people that came out
yeah,
hating it. I don't think it's a terrible movie. I just think
yeah.
that
It's a bit dull.
it was light on character, honestly. Like it was very
Yeah,
light on character. And Brie
yeah.
Larson is an actually a very good actress, which kind of
She
made me
is.
sad because when they casted her, I
Yeah,
was like, I can see that, and she's legit
yeah,
a good actress. And also what they did with Nick Fury. Like I'm furious with those writers of the movie. I'm
yeah,
furious with those writers. What they did with Nick Fury, I was like,
yeah,
the eye patch comes from him getting scratched from a cat.
yeah.
What?
Apparently, apparently.
I was like, what? No, like
Yeah.
because in Winter Soldier they have a whole thing about the eye patches from
Mm,
somebody he couldn't trust. So you're thinking it was like a
yes.
huge betrayal or something. No, apparently he was being nice to the cat, and the cat decided just to scratch his eye, and he was like, I will
Yeah.
never trust anybody ever again. Wait, what?
Yes. Uh,
No, but like let this be a lesson to anybody that's in writing or whatever. Write characters.
mm,
Don't write tropes per se. You know what I'm
yes.
saying?
And yeah, that's the perfect word, because tropes and MacGuffins become so problematic. And it's not to say that a character can't have tropes or shouldn't have tropes, because you need recognizable factors in characters. So like, for example, original Goku was the underdog, and he had to work really hard to be able to beat even Piccolo. And so that was what made him such a great character, was that he worked and he tried and he failed. And so something like that is great. There's nothing wrong with it, with the trope of the underdog, for example, because people really respond to something like that. But on the other hand, I love the fact that like someone like Saitama is just all powerful, unstoppable, and hilarious because he hates the fact that he's so strong that nothing can stop him. And I think that's what makes that show so fantastic. And, I mean, season 2 wasn't good, but it's because it was given to the wrong studio. It wasn't that the writing was bad; it just wasn't the same. And because you can see the difference between Madhouse and the other guys that did season 2, is that they just didn't have the same level of development that Boku no Hero has, and season 1 of One Punch Man. And it was just a bit lazy. And I know it wasn't season 2 wasn't about Saitama at all; it was about the other characters, but it just felt so unresolved. And the amount of times they showed his head from the back for some reason, I don't get that. It's bad and lazy directing. And so that was the thing. And I like, especially when you come to expect the excellence from Madhouse, and you know that it's going to be well directed and well animated, and then you just get season 2 and you're just like, what are you doing?
Mm.
So yeah.
It's interesting to hear like an animator and an artist also, like, because sometimes I like I try to contain myself because I'm not in that world, because I did try to learn how to draw and everything, and
Yeah.
it's hard. It's so hard. And I stopped for a couple of months because I was just working on some other content and stuff. I'm about to start it up again because me and my brother are actually working on a book as well. And we were hoping to
Cool.
get it out by January, like the first issue by
Mm.
January. We're hoping, fingers crossed. And yeah, learning script writing and everything. But like I was always that guy who was like, I never want to be hypercritical of a thing because I'm not in that space, kind of
Yeah.
thing. But it's interesting to hear you as an animator go like the bad art direction and everything, and everything everybody was saying. And I was like, maybe fans are
Yeah.
spot on sometimes.
Yes.
you know
No, it's sad because everyone loves One Punch Man, but you can't deny season 2 wasn't very good. It doesn't, even if you don't know the technical stuff, it was missing soul. There was just something.
Mm,
It was the same as I think season 2 of Attack on Titan. It just wasn't that good. And it's like, especially the precedent at season 1 set, and then season 2 was like, and then season 3, the second half was really good. So it's like, so that's the
yeah.
thing. So I'm looking forward to the final season, obviously, but like, and I'll always watch it. But it's just like, it's interesting to see how much of a dip it took.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean, for me personally, I don't know where you are because I read the manga. I don't know if you're
Yeah,
where Aaron does that whole thing where he infiltrates the other city and whatever. I don't know if you're there
not
yet.
yet. Yeah, but I
But
don't. But don't give spoilers to your
yeah,
audience, though.
yeah, no, don't worry about that. But I just felt like what's this? I kind of fell off with Attack on Titan because I hate it when characters get too self-important. Personally, like sometimes when characters get too self-important, like the only thing that matters is what they're doing, and everybody else doesn't
Mm,
matter at all. I'm just like, you kind of lost me there because a lot of
yeah,
people didn't like Eren in the beginning. I really liked Eren in the beginning. Like he was
yeah,
kind of like a psychotic Naruto, so or a
yes,
psychotic, he was like a psychotic main character. And I mean, he still had like a whole lot of compassion, but he was just insane.
mm,
I really liked that balance of an insane person with a lot of compassion. And then when they just took him in
yes.
the other route, everybody was like, he's such a deeper character now. And I was like, yeah, I don't think so.
Not really.
Yeah, I don't think so. So I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
we'll see how it ends. We'll see how it ends. But yeah,
yeah.
personally, and I know Attack on Titan fans, geez, I am just bringing so many fandoms to my house right now. They're all just going to
Yeah.
be, I mean, social distance. Make sure you're socially distanced as you hold your pitchforks.
Yes.
Sanitize. Make sure you have your masks as you hold your pitchforks. You know what I'm saying? It's fine. But yeah, okay. So quick question:
Mm.
one cartoon from the 80s you want to bring back, which one would it be? 80s, 90s.
Brave Star. Brave
Brave
Star.
Star.
Yeah, by far. Like, I absolutely adored Brave Star as a kid, and him and Saber Rider actually were my two favorites from like in terms of that sort of genre, like the space cowboy genre. And so it's just, I think that it's just, the problem is representation. So obviously,
Mm.
for those of you that don't know, Brave Star is about a Native American sheriff and slash marshal and his cybernetic horse, who is really cool, and they go around fighting crimes. It's very like He-Man-ish kind of thing. So you had the big archetypal villain, and then they'd go like day to day fighting crime. And so, but it was just such a cool series because it was I'll never forget it because it was the first series I remember that didn't have a white main character. and it was so cool, and I really loved Brave Stars as the Marshal, and I thought he was just a really amazing character. And Saber Rider was also kind of like that, but also another series. But this is getting a movie adaptation as Mask. But not the Mask, not the cartoon.
Oh,
It was MASK,
okay.
Mechanized Assault and something. But that was another one with a great theme song. But like, I absolutely loved that show, and I know there's a movie getting produced of it now. Hopefully, they don't ruin it like Transformers. So we'll see.
uh,
But I mean, I don't get it, because Transformers Cyberverse, if you watch the trilogy on Netflix, is so very good. So why can't Michael Bay just like not do all the weird stuff and just look at the story
well,
and give the
that's
characters
Michael Bay.
personality?
If you look at all of his other
Yeah,
movies, you asking for a lot. I mean, Armageddon,
yeah,
he had explosions in space. I didn't even know you could
yes,
do that.
apparently.
Like,
Yeah,
it was so hilarious. Ben Affleck, like, he released a clip where he literally told Michael Bay, "It's like, Michael Bay, I don't think we can have explosions in space, man." And then Michael Bay was
yeah,
just like, "You don't know what you're talking about."
I can do
And Ben
whatever I
Affleck was like,
want.
"All right, man." Ben Affleck is like, "I'm an actor who wants a job." Okay.
Yes, yes, just pay me. Yeah.
Oh man, like those movies are. I remember watching. Like, I don't even remember them. That's how crazy
Mm,
that was. Like, I remember
yeah,
watching them because it was a big cinematic phenomenon, and I remember
yeah,
being in the cinema when they dropped. But I don't even like actually remember them. And when I
yeah.
go
They're just
back, I was in fury. I was furious.
Yeah, because they're really long as well, and there's just like so much stuff happens all the time. You're like, I don't understand, how did they suddenly arrive at the military base when they were literally just talking in a restaurant? And like, what? And
No,
it's like,
time is weird in the Michael Bay
yeah,
verse. And it's like, why is
yeah,
Shia LaBeouf the Autobot Jesus? Like, wait a minute,
yes,
isn't that Optimus? Like, and there's
yes,
not a lot of Optimus in those movies. Like, have you noticed? Like,
none,
Optimus disappears half the time in those movies. Like, he dies
yeah,
and then he comes back and then he did, and he's mean in those movies.
yes.
Make
Oh,
Optimus
he's
nice.
really mean.
He's so mean.
I mean, Megatron is nicer than him. It's just like, what?
Like, he straight executes people. One of his lines
Yeah,
is "Give me your face." That's a literal line from
yes,
the movie. I couldn't believe it. I went back.
yeah,
I checked the DVD box because I actually bought it because that was just bothering me when I heard it in the theater. I was like, did he really
yes,
say "Give me your face"? Turns out,
yeah,
word for word, "Give me your face."
yeah. That's the thing. Like, I always tell people, go and watch the crazy 80s movie, because it's like, it just makes so much more sense, and it's also got a lot more emotion in it. It's like, whoa, for a kids movie, it's a bit much.
Yeah.
But
They
yeah,
I didn't know Optimus died like that. I really didn't, because
yes,
he's my favorite
yeah,
Transformer. And then when they killed
yeah.
him in the 80s movie, I was like, wait, what?
And in the
Uh-huh.
beginning as well, like, they didn't even waste time. They're just like, you die now. Oh,
But Transformers Prime also was a great cartoon. I don't know if you ever
oh,
saw
I
that.
love it.
Transformers
Oh,
Prime was
absolutely adore it.
fantastic. And
Yeah.
then they kill him there too. And I was like, God damn it,
Yep.
Optimus.
Stop dying. I mean, even the original, it's just Transformers Armada. He died. Like, I think he died in almost everything. Even in Beast Wars, he died,
Yeah,
because
Beast
I
Wars,
remember he had
he
to
he
give up the
died.
spark. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just like, is this a thing? Because he's my favorite
Yes.
Transformer. Like, it's him, and
Yeah.
then it's Bumblebee, and then it's
Mm,
Hot Rod. Those are my three
yeah.
favorites. And then Optimus just always dies. It's so frustrating. Yeah.
Yes.
One
Don't
cartoon.
invest in.
Speaking of Mecha, though, one cartoon I wish would come back. I don't know if you ever saw this. Is Megas XLR. Like, I
Oh
would like
yeah.
for that to come back. Oh my
I
god.
love giant robots.
And they're like, chicks dig giant
Big
robot.
giant robot.
But
Oh
like,
man.
for such a series that, like, it didn't objectify women that way. Like, I know
No, no,
people here
Kiva was
chick,
actually
yeah,
really cool.
Kiva was the most competent out of the three of them,
Yes.
actually. Like,
Yes.
if they like, if Kiva were to ever die, Coop and Jamie would be dead. Like,
Yes.
they would have
Literally.
no chance
Yeah.
whatsoever. Ah man,
No,
I love
and
I
this,
love that tune so much.
and the story behind its cancellation was so sad, and it's because they were doing, Cartoon Network was doing this whole like merchandising thing, and they started going, oh, we're not making enough toy sales from that, so they canceled that. Then they did the same thing to Symbionic Titan, which was also one of the greatest series ever made,
Gennady
and
Tartakovsky, man.
I mean, at least Primal's is doing amazingly, and it's such a good show. Yo, it's so good. So, I'm actually looking forward to Tartakovsky's new show that's coming out as well. So it's, I mean, everything he does is great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Samurai
yeah.
Jack, man. Jeez, like
Oh
that.
man, except for the final episode, that uh,
I don't know why he did that, but apparently the
wow.
game. I think the game rectifies the ending. So
It does, it does.
I'm like I haven't finished it yet because I have a gaming channel, so I'm trying to play it on the gaming channel. So I'm the
Yeah,
fingers crossed. But yeah, like
yeah,
I heard that it does rectify the ending, which I'm looking forward to because I'm just like you
yes,
cannot rip my heart out like that, man.
yeah. Yo, yeah, good luck with the final boss fight. My word, that is, it's actually very hard.
Oh, cool. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
that I think Samurai Jack was what got me into nerd media, if I'm being honest. Like
Mm.
that was the first thing I remember as a kid, leaving an imprint in my brain where I was
Oh,
just
yeah.
I broke so many rulers, frustrating my mom. Oh, my mom will tell you stories. I used to run through the living room screaming a coup.
Yes,
They don't even know what a coup is about. They're wondering if I'm okay mentally in the head as a kid.
yes. And that's the great thing. I mean, there's another series with a non-white male lead, and it was so good. And also, I mean, Tartakovsky, the amount of times he did silent episodes, where I mean, this is very high concept for kids' TV, but it
I
was just
mean,
so amazing.
like the episode with the shinobi was one of my
Yes,
favorite episodes, and there is next
yeah,
to no dialogue in that episode. Like I just
yeah,
remember
my
watching it
word.
as a kid, no explosions, nothing. It was just two dudes fighting in the dark and the light, which was
Yes,
insane to me.
it was mind
So
blowing.
yeah, man, that's that because I feel like kids' cartoons nowadays, they're kind of just they're making noise, but they're not saying anything. Like that's
Mm,
how I feel. It's like a lot of them are just a lot of noise, slapstick, but you're not really saying
yes,
anything. And I think
yeah,
like
it's
kids
mostly
are
silly.
way smarter than we. I kids are way smarter, I think, than we give them credit for. And I think
Yeah,
giving them like it doesn't have to be mature, but just giving them good storytelling allows them to
mm,
appreciate a lot of things about a show. I mean, even if we look
yeah.
at something like Kids Next Door, where it was a commentary on
Oh,
growing up,
so great.
yeah,
Yeah.
man, where it was a commentary on growing up and how grown-ups become stick in the muds and how they want to go
Mm,
to this 9 to 5 job and they just start living boring lives because that's what society told you to do. Like you can't be a
yeah.
kid forever, quote unquote. Which I'm
Hmm.
so glad that I broke out of that. Whoo, because
Me too.
oh, I feel like I'd be miserable as a human being. Like I don't care how much money I would make at like the factory or whatever you want to call it.
Mm,
If I didn't have my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I like people laugh. I might literally die. Who knows?
yeah. 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 I mean, like, I've literally got this right in front of me.
That is so cool.
Batman.
That is so cool. Na 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 Batman. That's also a great theme, by the way.
Hmm.
Speaking of which, though, I was talking to Muhammad Hussein Mo Lycan, and he says that he was under your mentorship. So I wanted to talk about you teaching and mentoring. Like, how does that work for you, and what made you do
Yeah.
it? Those types of things.
So I think he's exaggerating a bit there because he's actually one of my students at Wits. So
Oh,
he's just moving into second year now. But I teach him in the theory course, the various theory courses and that sort of thing. So yeah, like it's more like I moan at him constantly about pushing his storytelling more than mentoring him. So I think that's the kind of relationship we have where he'll send me some work on via Instagram or on email or whatever. Even when we had physical classes, we would actually just sit. He would come and bring his stuff like to my office, and we just sit and go through the stuff like that. So like in fact, to be more accurate, he's actually getting mentored more by Loiso Mkize, because he's actually an inker for Kwezi at the moment, which is really impressive, and I'm really proud of him for doing that. And so where I push him more on the storytelling front, so just to get him to break again the tropes we were talking about earlier, pushing his more towards more unique narratives. And he did a beautiful comic for his exams for that exact reason. And we're starting to see like a lot more emotion out of his characters. And I love the Guardian anyway, so it was really good to see how much further he could actually push it. And I mean, I even worked with him on a Spider into the Spider-Verse zine project. So I did a piece for that, which was really cool. So we've been doing, so we do a lot of stuff together. And obviously when he eventually gets up to the year I teach, because the practical subjects I teach that would involve him is only in third year and fourth year. So it's a little much later on down the line. But then I'll probably be more of a mentor to him.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay. Well, his words, not mine. But but that's interesting. So there is like animation and stuff at Vits. Like there is like a whole
Hmm.
course based around that stuff. That's pretty
Yeah.
interesting. That's pretty interesting because I mean, for me, the reason why I wanted to learn how to draw was just to make my comic book. Because I'm not a person who likes to
Mm.
wait on people, and I'm terrible at drawing. Always have. Like I always draw like my thighs always look like those, you know, those thighs at KFC that are out of shape.
Yes.
Like those thighs, it looks like they did something to that chicken. Like they put something in that chicken. That chicken is not.
Yes. The
That's
hormones.
yeah, yeah. That's all my thighs and my arms and everything when I started learning how to draw and all of that stuff. So, what would your advice be for somebody who's they've never attended an art class? They might not
Mm.
have the qualifications per se to enter like a Vits or whatever, but they're really interested in trying to create something of their own. What would you tell that
Yeah.
person?
Yeah. So what I always tell people in that regard is that firstly, fan art is always a good thing because you learn how other people draw. So especially emulating things, even tracing lines in the beginning actually really helps you to understand the shapes and forms. It's almost like teaching your hand how to move. And so practicing taking characters you love and drawing them over and over and over again, right? It actually really helps to actually to put it in your brain how the human body works. And the one thing people always shy away from is using reference, and I don't know why. It's like you take photos of yourself, take photos of your friends, your family, whatever, like actually understand how the body moves, how it actually functions. And then the most important thing is there's an amazing artist named Andrew Loomis. So his surname is spelled Loomis, and he created a system where you literally use geometry to build the shapes of the body. So you use spheres and rectangles and cubes, and you basically build the body out of shapes. And when you can understand how shapes move and interact with each other, because it's much easier to draw a cube than it is to draw a human. So if you can understand the basics, so like how a cube would actually look in perspective and everything, then he shows you how to build a body over that. And there's a really, really great techniques that he invented to very quickly be able to draw characters even without reference. And then there's another really great YouTube channel that's called Proko Paints. So that's Proko. The artist's name is Steve Prokopenko, and he does amazing stuff. So like he teaches you step by steps on everything: how to draw fingers, eyes, how to draw the face using the Loomis method, how to draw bodies, like or figuring out how clothing folds and everything like that. And it was I learned a lot from him, and just figuring out how those forms and shapes work and everything. And then eventually, when I started developing my own style a few years ago, well, more than a few, let's say a decade ago, when I started developing my own style and the way I wanted my characters to look, that's when you start learning visual language and you start looking at things like we were talking about Gently Tartakovsky. Like I absolutely adore Stefan De Stefano's work. So he's normally the guy that designs all the stuff for the Tartakovsky series. He designed Samurai Jack and Primal and all of that stuff. And I absolutely love the way he handles line art and the kind of very graphic, very, very thick, very, very bold kind of art and everything. And then looking at something like Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which is Andy Suriano's work, and it's just how expressive his characters are, and the kind of experimental angles and the weirdness and the cartooniness of them. I absolutely adore it. And so you start looking at things like, and then even the legends, Bruce Timm, Glenn Murakami, Jeff Matsuda, like the true greats that actually refined and defined the generation of arts from the Batman, the animated series, Justice League, Teen Titans, those guys that kind of invented the way animation looks now, at least Western animation. And even Man of Action, actually, like the kind of different things, like and when I say that, I mean the original Ben 10, like the really, 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 really good one from the early 2000s, before the weirdness and madness stuff, the new one. I don't know what they did, why they did that, but the original Ben 10, like that one was absolutely phenomenal. And again, for the young people watching this was like 2003. Like, do yourself a favor and go and find the original Ben 10. It's so much better than anything you're watching right now.
No,
Even Omniverse, actually. So, like,
Omniverse is pretty good.
It was actually, yeah.
I'm just laughing now because I'm thinking, Ben 10 in South Africa does mean something different.
Oh yes, it means something very, very different. Yeah, I mean, so does 4-5. So let's not go there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I was talking to I was talking to Rainbow Nation Comics because they're doing the
Yeah.
Young Nelson. They're doing the Young Nelson
Yes.
comic book and whatever. I bought
Yeah.
that from them as well. Definitely go check that out. Anybody who is watching, it's pretty
Mm,
good. I liked it as well. I liked it a lot. But yeah, we were just chuckling to ourselves because he mentioned Ben 10 as well because he was also a fan of the Ben 10 series, and I was just thinking to
mm.
myself, wow, how did that happen inside? How did that happen? I'm actually curious
I think
as
it's
to the
because of the
story.
cartoon. I honestly think it's because of the cartoon.
But like, whose mom was watching that and were just like, that will be the name now for.
You're my Benton.
Oh man. And the crazy thing is that endures to this day. I saw a Twitter post
Mhm.
with an old lady and she had a PlayStation 5 and she was like, Ben 10's apply here or something.
You're no, you laugh, but I actually made my second year students write an essay on the Daily Sun. Like, I absolutely love that newspaper. I think it's a great cultural artifact, and I actually got them to do an essay on their headlines and the way they write their articles and everything. And so I got some pretty decent results out of it. So yeah,
Yeah, no, hey, Tokoloshis will underneath the sink and people coming
they
back
do
from the dead
everything.
and
Yeah.
there's a cartoon in there somewhere. There's a cartoon in there
Yeah.
somewhere for sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's where a lot of my source material for Spook and Wanton come from anyway. So it's like I look at the headlines and especially the Tokoloshi Torment Sangoma, that's actually why I themed Wanton the way I did.
Oh my
So
God. I'm
based it on
putting the
real
dots
headlines.
together now because I just
Yeah.
read this because I'm preparing for a review. And
Yeah.
yeah, because I have to re-review it. I gotta re-review a lot of this stuff because this is a totally new channel. But I just put that
Yes.
together now. Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even if you look on the back cover of Spook, that is an actual Daily Sun headline.
That's hilarious. Ah, that is so
Yeah.
good. Ah, that is so good. You touched on something interesting that I also wanted to cover, like artists and their styles. Because my brother, I mean, I've experienced this as a musical person, definitely.
Mm,
Because like, there's a lot of people who will praise you, or they will praise me for, oh, when you did this and that and the other and all of that stuff.
yeah.
And I wasn't happy with it personally, and I was just like, yeah, don't praise me for that. I don't want it. Now, my brother does
Mm,
that a lot where he's self-taught, he's drawing and everything. He doesn't feel like he has a particular style yet, but he'll be doing stuff in
mm.
my mind where I'm just like, why what and like he does it on a tablet with his finger and everything, so I'm like, I'm
Wow.
really impressed. Like, he doesn't even have a
Yeah.
stylus, nothing. He has no pens. He literally zooms in, does the lines, zooms
Mm,
out, does the lines, and all of that stuff.
wow.
Is pretty hectic.
Yeah.
So now that I know that Vitz is doing an animation course, I would love to get him into it because he just finished high school. But like,
Perfect.
yeah, but like, what's this with developing your style? What advice do you give to artists who are in that stage where they're like,
Mm,
kind of always frustrated with their work, even though their work is, in my opinion, I'm guessing, really
yeah.
really good. So what do you
Yeah.
tell artists in that stage?
Yeah. Yeah, so a lot of students ask me this, and the answer is actually, it's a little bit complicated, but it will make a lot of sense when you get there. But basically, I mentioned stuff like shape language and everything a little bit earlier, and basically what you need to do is, firstly, there is no such thing as an original style. So your style will always be a modification of something that you've seen before, something that you enjoy, something that you've borrowed elements from and then created something from yourself. And it's not, and people will argue this and say, but that's not true, and but it is. You're always going to be basically building on what came before. And I mean, even someone like Bruce Timm, who's got one of the most iconic styles, based his stuff on Art Deco. So you can see there's always a cycle of inspiration where these things come from. And so what a lot of artists often say to help you figure out where your style needs to be is, you need to look at three things. So you need to look at posing, so like how a character looks, how they work, how they function, how they move. You need to look at form, which is the general kind of construction of a character, and then your shape language. So I know form and shape language sounds similar, But basically, the difference between the two is that your shape language is essentially where how you actually put a character together. So it's like if you've got a very strong character, they have very wide shoulders and narrow hips, or how do you communicate what a strong character looks like without overtly drawing muscles, especially in animation where you don't have the luxury of redrawing these things over and over and over again because it takes forever. So when you're figuring that sort of stuff out, what a lot of people do is they say find 3 artists that do it amazingly for you. So if someone's really good at just drawing like amazing, natural, beautiful poses, so someone like Loish, otherwise known as Lois van Baal, like if you look at how she poses her characters and how natural they look and everything, that's the first thing. Then if you want to look at form, so you really enjoy an artist that stylizes their characters quite a lot. There's a local guy named Nicholas Ricks that does an absolutely amazing job of doing like really beautiful stylized characters and figuring out how he gets his silhouettes right and the different kinds of shapes and forms and everything. And then finally, shape language. And my favorite artist at the moment is Rad Seacrest, who did Keeper and the Age of Wonder Beasts. And the way he just has these beautiful, dynamic, really weird shapes that don't seem to work together, but really do at the same time. Like I absolutely adore how he does that stuff. And then what you do is you combine them. So you take the pose from the one artist, you take the kind of form and style of drawing from the other, and then you do your shape language from the third, and you mix them together and you start figuring out how they do it, and then you start making a more dynamic and more unique version of something that you can start drawing yourself. And that's really where you start learning your style. And a lot of people tend to misname style for medium. So if you're a digital painter, for example, so like a local example would be Warren Lowe. That's not actually a style, that's a medium, it's a technique. So you use a stylus and a tablet to paint digitally, so it's not actually a style. But Warren Lowe does have a very distinct style. The way he draws is what makes his stuff unique. It's not the medium, it's the way he executes it. And I think that's something that's very important to not confuse yourself with as well. It's like if you like animation, that's a medium, that's not a style. When I say animation, there are so many different ways of doing an animated character. Like just offhand, you can do something like the Carl Art style, which is the Adventures of Gumball and Steven Universe, the jelly bean mouth. That's the easiest way to explain it to people that don't know. So, and a lot of modern Disney series have that kind of style. Or you can go for the gently Tartakovsky look and blah blah blah. Or you go in the opposite direction. You look at anime, and then you've got Miyazaki, and then you've got Akira Toriyama, and you've got so many different directors and artists, and all these different styles that work as well. And so that's why you don't ever confuse yourself and say, I want to do anime style. That's that's a very big word to call something anime style. You need to figure out which kind of anime, and is it seinen? Is it shoujo? Is it shonen? Like what genre of anime are you looking at, and why is it suitable to that genre? And that's the thing. So you have to be so careful because when you're researching as a startup artist, you don't know these terms, you don't know what these words even mean sometimes. And so you need to understand how these things function, especially in the difference between Eastern and Western kind of art styles. Even the French have a very different art style to the Americans. So looking at something like if a French example would be Valerian or Last Man. Last Man's amazing. It's kind of like anime / Western animation, and it's crazy. It's absolutely amazing. And so there's some really interesting stuff there. And so you need to also build what's called the visual library. So you basically make a folder on your computer or your phone and download stuff that you think looks really cool, and start actually building this up so that when you start to start drawing again, you look at artists that inspire you, look at pieces that make you happy, and you just keep going like that. And nowadays, just use Instagram save function. It's also really good to support local artists because the algorithm looks at how many saves the thing has rather than how many comments or likes. So the more you save someone's work, the more you support them as well. And if there's something you enjoy about it, save it and support them and share people's work, especially smaller local artists. Like it's so important to help them grow as well. So someone that you enjoy, going like, hey, this artist did this really cool piece. I like it. I'm going to share it with other people, and it builds a community. And in that community, you start getting support. So if you're struggling, I cannot draw hands. How do I draw hands? Let's find an artist that does a really good job. And then you find someone, you make friends with them because that's what the internet does now. And they're like, can you please teach me how to draw hands? And they go, cool, this is how you do it. And that's the kind of stuff that you can start actually doing, is just engaging with people and asking them those kind of questions. And that's the sort of thing that a lot of people ask. And I often get asked how I do my colors, and I always tell them I'm really super lazy. So it's like, because it's again, but I had to explain this to a student, it's laziness by experience. So because I don't have to go through a million billion phases of doing analogous colors and complementaries and everything. I just know instinctively which colors work together. So I just it's called flatting. So you basically just select the whole character, you lay down a base color, and then you draw over it. And then I start figuring out complementary colors that'll work, and doing rim lights and highlights and everything. It's something that would take a new artist hours and hours and hours to do. And for me, I can live stream it and do it within like 30 minutes to an hour at most. And that's just experience, because I've been doing this for 16 years. And that's the sort of thing. So, and that's why I always also tell people, don't get frustrated if it takes a long time to do something, because you're still learning. You're still learning your own kind of style. You're learning your own shapes. You're learning your own forms. You're even learning your own method. So that's the thing. And there's no wrong method either. That's the thing. So it's like, I always shout at my students, and I'm like, you will name every layer in Photoshop, every single one of them. I don't care if you have 1,000 layers. Each one of those layers will have a name. So other people will do a billion layers and never name them, never label them. Some work on one layer, which makes me very scared. But that's just the way people do things. And so when you're starting, don't think that what you're doing is wrong or not the best way or whatever, because you learn better methods while you're practicing. And always actually ask advice. Go like, hey, artist I really like, how do you do this? I'd love to know, like, how did you do that shading? Or how do you make how do you get your outline so clean? Like, that's something I get asked a lot, is how do you do that? And I showed them a trick that I do with the pen tool. And it's actually quite funny, because it's also super lazy. It's like, but it's something that I learned. It's a laziness that I taught myself to actually be more efficient. And that's something that I taught people to do, is clean line art and that kind of thing. And especially using a raster program like Photoshop, which naturally doesn't do very clean line art. And so that's the kind of stuff I can show people as well. It's like, and that's what you need to ask, is you look for your experienced artists and everything, and you go, hey, I've seen your work, I've bought your comic, I've done whatever. Can you please help me understand this, this, and this? And then obviously, to a greater extent, I mean, there's artists like me, for example, that are also lecturers. So as you mentioned, I teach at WITS in the digital arts department, and my specialty is teaching comics and lettering and layout and coloring and that kind of thing. That's what I do. I also I teach animation at third and fourth year level. So that's also that's what I do as a job. And obviously, if you're studying with me, I have even more time with you, and I can actually really focus on that kind of thing. And that's always, there's always this debate where I see this often on communities on Facebook and everything, where people are like, oh, why bother paying to study animation or study drawing or blah blah blah? You can just teach yourself on the internet. And I'm like, yes, you can. You can. I mean, YouTube exists. There's like a million tutorials on how to use Blender and Toon Boom and Photoshop. Like, it's easy to find content for that. But the one thing I tell people is, you will never have an expert that's there that can help you immediately if you have a question and if you don't know what you're doing. And the other thing university level education teaches you is how to ask questions. And it's not just to draw a picture because it looks pretty, but rather like, is this the right way to draw this picture? Is this the right composition? And why am I doing it in this composition? Why is it landscape and not portrait? And figuring those sort of things out. And then that's just the superficial thing. And then later we challenge the why you're doing the content you're doing. Like, is this fairly representative of someone that you're working with? And when we were talking earlier, I mentioned I'm doing my PhD, and that's a large extent of what I'm basing this on, is like, as a white person, am I actually allowed to draw anyone that's not white? Can I draw a female characters as a cis male? Like, am I allowed to do that? And how do I do it effectively? How do I do it with meaning and with metaphor, but without causing offense and pain and hurt? And the answer is, I can't, because someone is always going to take offense. And I'm sure you've seen in Spook, there's the witch character that he's sent to assassinate. I get so much flack for her, but there's such a specific reason she looks the way she does. And I'm only going to reveal it in issue 3. And so I'm going to have to keep taking the flack for now until I get to issue 3. And then people go, oh, that makes sense. But for now, yeah, I am getting a lot of heat for that
But
particular way I've
here's what
drawn
I will
her.
always say for that. Here's what I always say for that, especially as a black person who's been in comic book, like who's been into comic books
Yeah.
and comic book media and all of that stuff. I mean, for me, first off, I have debates around diversity and stuff
Mm.
all the time from across mediums, from across countries. I'm always that person who's pushing that envelope to say that if you get more people in, like I don't know if you saw that whole thing with the Cleveland Brown actor. I'm forgetting his name.
Oh yes. It's Seth MacFarlane.
No, no, no. Seth MacFarlane is the showrunner, or I think he's the creator. But the guy who
Yeah.
actually voiced him, Mike Brown. There we go. There we go. Mike Brown. He voiced Cleveland, and a lot of people knew this for a
I
lot
I
for a
can't actually
long.
remember who his voice is.
Yeah, if you look up Mike Brown, I think that's his name.
Mm.
Cleveland specifically in the Family Guy show, and he gets his own show eventually and everything.
Yeah, and then
Yeah,
it failed.
yeah. Well, I mean, but I mean, the point is that I made a video about how it doesn't if you start making black people play black characters and females play
Mm.
females and all of those things, the people who are mean and nasty, for one, they're just gonna make everybody aliens. Like everybody
Yes.
will be purple and blue,
Yeah.
and they'll be not like they'll just get the actors that they like.
Yes.
So in my video, I pose to studios, and especially like here, if when we start doing animations for here locally and all
Mm.
of that stuff, because I think there's going to be a huge boom. I
Yeah.
said in my video that you have to go to the communities that have been disenfranchised for a very long time and
Yeah.
look for the pool talent there. Just give it a
Yes.
try. I'm not saying it has to be. Like that's
Mm.
something also people must understand. There is no requirements whatsoever. But
Yeah.
if the industry is to evolve, one, if the industry is to be forever, and if the industry is to actually be as inclusive as we want it to be, because we all support the medium, we all support it, from the transgendered to the black to
Yeah.
the cis male, to
Hundred
everybody's
percent.
buying books,
Yeah.
everybody's watching TV shows. So if we want that to reflect the fan base, which is something that I think is well deserved, you have to go to the places where they haven't been represented and give them a
Yes.
chance. If
Yeah.
they press you there, fantastic. If they don't, then you can go back to your regular pool of actors. I'm not saying that
Mm.
cut anybody out, but extend the
Yes.
process basically, so that
Yeah.
situations like your character with Spook won't come up so much, because they always feel like that's it, that's all we got, that's all we're represented as, we're
That's
represented.
how we're seen. Yeah.
That's how we're seeing, versus when you get a whole spectrum of characters where you can go from somebody like a Captain America to somebody like a Logan to somebody like a Tony
Mm.
Stark, where it's a whole spectrum of character that you can go, okay, I don't rock with this, so I'm gonna pick Tony Stark, or I like
Exactly.
Wolverine, or I like, I like this, I like that. So once
Mm.
you get a situation like that, I don't think we will have situations where people get mad because a character is drawn a particular way. And the other
Yeah.
thing is, definitely outside of that, you need to start looking at people's track records and history. Because that's the first thing I do before I ever make a
Yeah.
decision on anybody, which is why I'm a big
Yeah.
fan of you. Your track record speaks for itself. Like, I've never seen anything particularly that's been like, okay, this is kind of
Mm.
suspect right now. You have to do
Yeah.
the legwork. Definitely,
Yeah.
I tell people who are activists, quote unquote, you've got to do the legwork. You've got to understand the
Mm.
people that you're going after, because sometimes you
Yes.
might be ruining a very, very lucrative relationship that could change things forever
Hmm.
by just gunning on somebody for one particular thing, because we're a very
Yes.
soundbite culture right now. And I know it's
Yeah.
hard, I know it sucks, I know it's draining, but it's supposed to be done. Like, that's how you're
Yes.
supposed to do it. You have to look at people's track records. If the track
Yeah.
record is showing consistently that there's problematic things there, then okay.
Yeah.
But if there's like, okay, he's been good, okay, this is a slip up, he's been good, yeah, then I give
Mm.
people a chance. Because I feel like,
Yeah.
especially as human beings, no matter what side of the spectrum you fall on, whether you're transgendered or whatever, somebody can get you for something. Like
Yes.
it
Yeah.
is
No
that
matter what.
simple.
Yeah.
It is that simple if we're going to be playing that game. So
Yeah.
definitely I tell anybody, please do your legwork, do your homework.
Mm.
And if you do see an avenue, educate first. before you
Yes.
obliterate. Let's
Yes. Yeah, like please don't put people on blast. Yo.
like for me, that's always my default situation is I'm gonna talk to you first. If you are showing that you don't want to listen, then it's another story.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right,
Yeah, exactly.
fine. But yeah, no, that's what I'm saying is like for people who are coming at Ray Witcher for Spook Meisterman, I say please let's wait for issue number 3, please.
Yes. Yes, everything gets explained, I promise.
Yeah,
But yeah,
so
it's the same. One of the funniest crits I got from Wanton was that I Disneyfied the characters in that one, and I'm just like, I really didn't, because I actually even mentioned in the book that I based the art style off of rock art. So I actually was like the character forms and shapes and everything were all taken from actual, because I mean Wits has the massive collection in the Origins Museum. So I sat there and I was just literally like drawing examples of rock art and everything like that. And so I was just like, this is a really weird crit to get, was that it was Disneyfied. And I was just like, is that a bad thing? I mean, like, stylistically it's a very recognizable style, so that's a good thing, right? So I didn't quite understand what they meant by that, because I was just like, when you call something Disneyfied, I mean, I mean, obviously you can look at someone like Taco Universe, who's really got a distinctly South African style, and I mean, maybe that's what the guy was getting at, was that it's like my stuff looked too Western. But I'm just like, what is the African aesthetic then? What does an African comic look like? Because we are still figuring out our own visual language and our own kinds of ways of depicting our characters. So I'm just like, yes, obviously I've got a Western influence, because we all do. I mean, that's what the media is. That's what we see every day of our lives. So, but I would like to think that my stuff's a little bit more unique than that. So it's like, so when he said it's Disney-fied, I'm just like, but why? And so I still haven't figured that out. But
as a Disney connoisseur, as a Disney, that's how you have to say connoisseur whenever you use that word. You gotta, you're a connoisseur. I didn't see that, so for you can
Hmm,
take that for what it's worth. But yeah, man,
yeah.
I just think also as South Africans, or as Africans, I think sometimes we have a pride that is unnecessary. It's like, yeah, we're
Hmm,
influenced by the West because that's what we watched. That's where
yeah.
it was. It wasn't a big. It's
Yeah.
not a big deal here. Like, let's be
Yeah.
real. Animation and Comic Con and all of this stuff is very recent. It's 2 years old.
Yes, that's the thing. I mean,
And
before then, when you grew up in the 80s and 90s, you only had American TV. That was all you got to see. I mean, the only local stuff was Igoli. I mean, come on. So it's like, so that's the kind of stuff. So it's we only started seeing essay animation in the late 90s with Tube. And I mean, the first real proper South African comic was Super Strikers. So that's and that came out in the year 2000. So we haven't had much time really to actually consume and engage with locally produced material. That's why I'm so excited about stuff like Mama K that's coming out, I think, next year, and I don't know when Quezi's coming out, but it should be in the next couple of years. But I'm really excited for that, because we're going to start seeing now South African characters that are produced by South Africans, and we'll start making that stuff. I mean, so many people, even when I teach the courses, when I bring up Super Strikers, they actually know the animated series more than they know the comics because of Disney. And again, it's exposure by Disney because of westernization and homogeny and all of those sort of things. So yeah, you might not have been able to pick up an issue of Super Strikers, but you could certainly watch it on TV at like to 5 o'clock in the afternoon when they used to show it. And that's the thing, like it's a matter of access. And that's why I was saying earlier, digital platforms are actually more effective, because print is just not that accessible. It's expensive, it's difficult to get hold of, it takes up space. Whereas, I mean, you could literally pick up your phone right now and watch Super Strikers. It's perfectly easy, and it's perfectly acceptable. And people forget, like, Super Strikers was our first true success story, both in comics and animation. So it's a big deal, and people need to respect that. And I mean, obviously Urbo was the first real proper series, but people don't even know it exists because the SABC messed that up so badly. But And that's the kind of stuff we need to look at. And I mean, there was Vili Vali and Liva Hexy and things, but those were puppet shows. So and not to denigrate puppets. I love
Yeah.
puppetry, but it's a different form of entertainment. I'm speaking specifically about animation.
That's why I was so geeked when I got to meet Luis and Kize. Like we did an interview that nobody
Yeah.
got to see, and I got to talk to Clyde
Oh,
Beach on this podcast, which was really cool.
and they're awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're super awesome. They're super awesome. I'm hoping to get Luis and Kize back for the podcast,
Yeah.
but when the show
Yeah.
drops, because I'm going to be promoting the hell out of that, but
Mm.
for free, by the way, for free. No
Yeah.
money involved. Because
Mm.
and people joke or people like laugh when I say that. It's like you guys have no idea.
Yeah.
No, I do a lot of free promotion on my Instagram because
Mm.
I'm built that way. I want this. I put my money where my mouth is. I'm not a person like
Yeah.
when I went to con, I said to everybody, I'm specifically going for the indie comic books. I bought
Yes.
so much stuff that I didn't even eat that day, I think.
Oh, I mean, I'm still grateful for the commission I did for you as well. So
That
it
was
was
that
really
was
cool.
that one also was really cool. Because
Yeah.
that's also a character that I'm really excited to bring to life because
Mm.
I think like because he's a disabled tech genius who's the son of a female billionaire. That's basically the
Yeah.
backstory that I'm going with. So I'm very excited to hopefully bring him to a book really soon
Yeah.
as well. And yeah, I've got a lot of interesting like I think story wise I'm pretty tight because I've been writing for about 10 years. Haven't published
Mm.
anything, but yeah, but yeah, I've always had a crazy imagination, so that's going to be really exciting to finally
Mm.
bring to a book, which hopefully is coming out in January, guys. Please cross
Yes.
fingers with
Yes.
me, cross fingers and toes and everything.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, but one thing I wanted to ask you, last question before we wrap this up.
Mm.
Do you think that like animation artistry and all of those things will ever get put on a pedestal here in South Africa or on the African continent like
Yeah.
that? Because I
I
think
honestly hope so. So obviously you've got things like the Eisner Awards for comic art, and it's animation's finally starting to get recognized a lot more in not Grammy, sorry, in the Oscars and the various award ceremonies now. But yeah, I would like it at some point to be revered and as respected as fine arts, for example. And I know, for example, for a fact that countries like France call comic arts and animation the ninth art because it's an actual respected art form. So there are countries that genuinely adore their comic stuff. So that would be places like France, Belgium, the Netherlands, Canada, obviously America, and so people and also Japan as well, where to be a mangaka is a respected and revered career, and to be an animator in an anime studio as well. And then you get countries that are basically what are called service countries like India that produce probably, I would say, almost 80% of the world's animation, but for them it's just a job. It's not again, it's not an aesthetic kind of a celebrated aesthetic or anything. It's just something that you do to make money. And I'm hoping with the launch of stuff like the African Animation Network that happened last year, we're going to start to see more kind of prestige allocated to it. Because again, especially if you look at South Africa, we are very much a STEM focused country. So STEM being science, technology, engineering, and math. And so art kind of gets sidelined. I mean, the amount of times people tell their parents, "I want to be an artist," they go, "Oh no!" It's that's the problem. And it's like when you tell your parents, "I'm going to get a BA," they're like, "Oh, well, there goes all my." so that's the so that's the thing, and that's not true. And the amount of skill and practice and professionalism it takes to actually make these things, it's an incredible career. And animation particularly is more and more needed. It's growing at a rate of knots in this country. I mean, you just have to look at the Animation SA organization and the work that they've been doing to actually really grow the industry. Those guys are leading the way. And I mean, they take our stuff through to Annecy and to MIPCOM and all the big buying events to get our content out and overseas. And that's why we're starting to see stuff like massive investment from Netflix. And they're really, really interested in producing more work. And so it's the same as studios like Triggerfish and Mind's Eye Animation and those guys. I mean, Mind's Eye really is leading the way with Catbox, and so they've actually done. I mean, Moosebox, sorry. So where they've done this incredible series, and it's theirs, and it's locally produced, locally animated. The only thing that's not local is the voice acting, which hopefully one day will change. but at least they've got a series they made themselves. It's on Nickelodeon right now, and that's such an impressive thing. The same as Triggerfish. They're going so far, and we're starting to see these things. And I mean, Triggerfish does the script writing competitions, and they're starting to do the mentorship programs. So we're really starting to see some really cool stuff. And even Chimologong Precincts, that's part of WITS, they've got a credible animator named Lesego Foster, who's also doing a pre-production workshop teaching people how to make animation, because again, we believe so much in the youth. And especially interestingly, 2D animation is where South Africa is kind of heading. We are really good at 3D, but it's 2D that everyone is really keen on doing. And you'll see that, for example, not Triggerfish, sorry, Mind's Eye is working on a series called Isora at the moment. And it's absolutely beautiful 2D animated series. It looks like it's going to cost a fortune, but hey, if the investors have money, then good for them. And then obviously Kariba, which is a huge labor of love by the Blue Forest Collective. And now one of their lead artists, Malcolm Warpair, is an official, he's the first ever animator in the country to be employed by Netflix to work in their animation division here. And that's such a big deal. And I'm so proud of the animation community and how far they've come. So yeah, for people watching, animation is a very viable career now. And you've got schools like Animation School that are specifically focused on teaching animation. And obviously I need to promote my own employer, because we do a really great job. And we recently worked with Viacom and Comedy Central and Nickelodeon. We did some really cool stuff with them. And so we're doing things, and we're pushing the way forward. And that's the thing. And I mean, especially at WITS, we also teach game design, which is a very unique career path that's also becoming a really big deal here in South Africa, because we desperately need more game designers. And so that's why it's really cool that we're pushing that end of the career. And game design, more than anything, is the perfect STEM job, because it's all the sciences, but it's also art. So, and writing and everything in between. So it combines everything you could think of, from programming to control development to obviously script writing, sound editing, everything you can think of. So it's this kind of huge thing, and you must
On
seriously check
top
out.
of that, employment, there's a lot of employment there, because you got to think
Mm,
about it. That's an entire building, so that's cleaners, that's lawyers,
yeah.
finance
Yes.
department, that's a whole, and it's
Yeah.
billions of dollars. Like, I think
Very much
people
so.
don't understand that it's billions. Like,
Mm,
Last of Us is shipped across the world. Like,
yes.
it was
Yes.
everywhere. That's billions. Like,
Yeah, and
not a
Judd
game.
Summertop that worked on that game, he was an alumni from WITS. He learned game design at WITS and went on to work on The Last of Us. So that's the thing. The South Africans are the ones that are leading the way in this, and it's just because we're like really unnaturally good at game design. So I think that's actually also a really exciting career path. So that's why you must never fear this kind of the pull to being creative, if you ever do feel it, because it's such a good thing. And we need more creative people. We also need more open-minded people to actually respect art, and especially in this country where we are so kind of lawyer and accountant centric, and those kind of jobs. That we I would love to see one day, if I saw a kid telling their parents, I want to be a comic artist one day, they'd be like, yes, that's the best thing ever, like a French kid would do, or a Canadian kid would do. Like, that would be the best thing in the world for me. That's kind of what I'd hope one day I'd get to see, at least before I die, because I'm old.
Nah, shut up. You're immortal.
Because I don't go in the sun.
Yeah. Blair.
Yes.
Oh man, it has been so much fun to chop it up and talk to you. You've dropped a lot of gems in this episode, and I hope it's going to reach a
Awesome.
lot of people. I definitely hope it's going to reach a lot of our local people as well, because
Yeah.
I've definitely had to not fight against it per se, but I've definitely had to explain myself a lot, and in terms of doing this YouTube thing, in terms of being a
Mm,
creative person myself and creating all sorts of things, and like my brain is just busy that way. I'm doing a whole bunch of stuff. I'm doing a lot of digital content as well, but it's a career path, but it's not something that's very celebrated like that. And I can
mm,
definitely definitely say the same for animation as well, because I've always been in awe of animators. I've always been in awe of people who can like draw stuff on a page. And I've always been
Yeah.
like that guy who says, like, when my brother said that he wanted to do that, I was definitely the guy like, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? And
Mm,
I've got this book, and you can work on it if you like, because I'm definitely not into forcing anybody to do anything. That's probably why I'm
yeah.
also learning how to draw myself, because eventually, possibly, I might have to take over the book myself
Yeah. Yeah.
because don't have money, not like that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, but the point being is like I push creativity as much as possible, because I feel like even if people say that it's a saturated market, which it isn't, we're only looking at like the same six people, and then it's because the media is so loud, it feels like there's a lot, but there really isn't. It's not
Mm,
like 7 billion people on the planet. If 2 billion of
yeah.
them are animators, you're fine. You can join the 2 billion. It's okay. You don't have to
Yes.
be like, oh, everybody's doing it, so I should probably be a lawyer. No, everybody's being
Mm,
a lawyer, so you should probably be an
yes. Yeah, we really don't need more lawyers in this world.
And I definitely feel sad when I see that spark killed in kids sometimes, where they want
Mm,
to be creative, and then it just disappears forever. And it's just like, man, don't kill that like maybe
yeah.
that's why the world is so stuck up and mean, because everybody's this
Yeah.
stuck up and grown and grumpy adults that never got to
Yeah.
enjoy themselves anymore, so now we're all upset and like I can't tell you how many times like a good episode of Kim Possible has made my day so much better.
Mhm.
I could have the worst day ever, but then I watch that and I go watch like Ron Stoppable doing stuff, and my day is much better.
Yes.
So yeah, please,
Yeah.
animation is important, and it's made by adults, by the way. Also,
Yes.
adults.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I think a lot of people forget that too. Like it is made by adults,
Yes.
so.
Yeah.
Unless you're Ray, where you're immortal and he's just been living forever.
Yeah, apparently.
So, is there any words you want to say for Meisterville before we wrap this call up, man?
Yeah, it's basically just it's I always say this in every interview I do is please support local. All right. So that's always the big thing. That's always something I'm going to ask. Because like if your friend is making a music video, go and click like on the video. Like literally it's the least you could do. It's not going to cost you anything. You just if just by clicking that like, it's already starting to support and to grow and to help encourage someone. And obviously if people are selling things, especially now with COVID and just the horrible things that have been happening to everybody, support local. Don't go and buy stuff from the shops and everything. When if you know an artist or a crafts person, go and support them. Like there's people make some really amazing stuff, and nowadays we all have websites. Trust me, and there's ways of reaching people. Find them on Instagram, find them on Facebook, whatever your preferred social platform is. You will find someone that's doing really cool stuff, and join communities like Itch and finding and even going. I know they weren't happening this year, but things like animation exchange where you can actually go and meet animators and see how they do their work and everything. So when those start back up, keep an eye on it because they do really cool things. And Make Games SA has a game meets, and for those of you that are in the industry, join into things like game jams and art jams and writing jams, because those are so much fun, especially the 24-hour comic jam. And it's literally that you get a day to make a comic, and it's huge amount of work, but it's really fun. And then you get the animation marathons where you get given 48 hours to make an animated short in a team. And those are the kind of things that you meet other people, you get to grow, and it's this like trial by fire, and it's really amazing. And like, yeah, if you have the will and the energy, you can produce some really great stuff. And that's how you can actually make things just so much bigger and so much better. It's just to participate and support each other, because it's all fine and well. Like it's like I said at the beginning of this, I love Batman, and I always buy Batman stuff because it makes me happy. But at the same time, I also really love supporting my friends in the industry that are making comics and building props and doing all these really cool things that they do. And I mean, sometimes all it takes is buying that issue from someone, and it'll make their day. Trust me on this. Like you give them, say, like $100 for their comic. Like believe me, every single person that buys a comic from me, it's like the most meaningful and important thing I've ever experienced in my life. It's just the most wonderful thing to think that someone wanted to read my comic that I made myself. And it's showing that kind of appreciation that helps inspire us to push further and to make more, because without it, it sometimes does feel like we're just throwing stuff at a wall and hoping it'll stick. And so that's the kind of thing, like because my big goal is to turn comics from a hobby into a career. And that would be something that would be a dream come true. And funnily enough, animation's paying the bills for me right now, but I would like comics to be doing the same thing as well. So that's the big deal. So that's the thing. It's just like support each other, grow the communities, and express yourselves. Like animation and comics, more than anything in the world, you can say and do whatever you want in them. You can find stuff like tapas, where you can put your comics up there and people will read them. You can put your animations on YouTube. There's no costs involved anymore. So at least you can get your stuff out there so people can read them, because that's how you start, by building a fan base. There's one of my favorite examples is Kaylee Pereira that made an LGBT comic called Until Sunset. And it started so small, and then she put it onto web comics and tapas, and it's now, I think she's got 2 million followers on her comic, and it's such an impressive thing. She's sold hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of issues. She's got a Patreon that's actually basically also paying her bills, and that's the thing. Like, you just put your stuff out there. Don't be scared. I mean, yeah, yes, there's trolls and mean people on the internet, but that's the thing. You have to take the meanness and forget about it. And just when people are supporting you and helping you, that's the best thing. And also, don't be scared to listen to crits. Okay, if someone says like, "Listen, your hands, you can't really draw hands. You need to get better." Listen to that. Practice. Do better stuff. Like,
Especially if they say it like that.
yeah, yeah, like if they just say, "Oh, your code sucks, it's stupid," just ignore that. Like
Yeah.
that's just someone that's bored and wants to upset people. But like, if someone's going to tell you like, "Listen, I really like your comic, but your storytelling's pacing is a bit slow or it's a bit confusing," then that's something you can learn from. And I literally I go the extreme. I go to actual Marvel and DC artists and ask them to crit my stuff, and that I've learned already. So because I took Wanton to Sean Isaacs. He draws the Avengers for Marvel. He legitimately does. He's a South African dude that does it. And I asked him to credit, and he said the one thing that I didn't really do was I don't have enough diverse angles, and also I tend to rely on waist up shots. So like, and I'm just like, because I'm thinking like an animator, and that's my problem. And so in Spook, you'll have noticed that like it's a lot more dynamic. There's a lot more full figure fight scenes, that kind of stuff. I showed Sean, he's like, "Yes, that's exactly what I was talking about. Now this is cool." And that's the kind of thing. So it's like, it's nice as well. That's what Comic Con's great about, is you can take your stuff, go and meet real proper comic artists that do this as a job, and get crits from them. I mean, last year we had Kuleshov Ilya, who is the lead character designer for Ghost in the Shell. I mean, come on, how cool is that? It's like, and he's the nicest person. Like, honestly, and that's the cool thing, is like, don't be shy. Go and talk to people and meet them and take your work and ask for crits. Like, honestly, artists are always like a bit introverted and a little bit overwhelmed most of the time, but they're still actually, we're always willing to help. It's not this like massive arrogance thing. Like, if someone seems arrogant, it's probably because they're terrified. Okay, like,
No, my brother's
there's
that
so
way.
many
My
people.
brother's that way. My brother, like, he
There's so
doesn't
many
talk
people.
to people. He doesn't talk to people that much, and he's like, he's always in his room drawing or trying to animate
Yeah,
something. And it's like, yeah, no, that's just the way he is. It's not that he doesn't want to talk to you. It's probably that he
yeah.
doesn't feel like he's interesting enough or whatever.
That's the thing. Yeah. So, and trust me, especially for very introverted artists like that, nothing means more to them than you supporting them and going like, "I like your stuff. That is cool." And it's like, it's the best feeling in the whole universe. Even if you don't buy it from them, you just tell them this stuff's cool. That's already something that means something to someone. But obviously, please do buy it,
Yeah.
because people need money.
Yeah, people need money. No, those
Yeah.
those those two artists always drained me dry. Like,
Hmm.
I wasn't mad at it, but like, yeah, my account was so empty. Like, I went in there and I was like, I am buying every indie comic book that I can get my hands on.
Yeah.
And my sister's like, you don't want to slow down, you might die of heat stroke and starvation. And I don't care.
Yeah. Think of
Uh,
us that were in that room for 4 days. Whew.
Yeah, I was just such a maverick for some reason. But yeah, I'm
Yeah.
hoping that the next one, if we have a con, in whatever shape or form it takes, do
Mm.
cross my book that my book is there. It's cool
Yeah.
to know that you are open to like helping and critting and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
That's really nice. And yeah, I believe in the project a lot, and it's so
Mm.
much fun to talk to people like you, man. It's so much fun, and I want to say thank you so much for coming through. I've taken up so much of your time, but thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me as well. I really appreciate it, and this was really fun.
Meisterville, anybody who follows me, please go follow Ray. I'm gonna make sure that all of his links are available. You have an Instagram, you have a Twitter,
Yes.
you have a
No,
YouTube?
no.
No, not a YouTube.
I've got YouTube, I've got Instagram, and I've got my own website. So it's
Okay.
raywitcher.com and then at raywitcher on everything else.
Okay, so then I can just
Yeah,
link people to all of that stuff, and I make it easy for them
yeah,
to find you. Yeah, and with
yeah.
that being said, me and Mr. Ray Witcher have to be out. Peace, guys. Peace, peace, peace.
Bye.